Hey guys, a lot of people don't know this, some do, but most don't know that I used to be a social worker for quite a few years. I have a master's degree in social work, which required me, or actually I chose to take a whole ton of psychology courses because I absolutely find it fascinating. And in it, I learned, among other things, but that biases are mental shortcuts or preconceived notions that we develop based on our personal experiences. So there are a ton of well-known cognitive biases out there that can impact our thinking and our behavior and our decision-making, and these can have a significant impact when we are working on our recovery from conditions like long COVID and chronic fatigue syndrome and ME. So in this video, I'm going to share 3 common biases that people can face when they're working on their recovery from these sorts of health conditions. And it's really important to know about them because you don't want them to be impacting your recovery. You don't want anything unnecessarily holding you back. And stick around to the end because I'm going to share a big one that I have realized, a big bias that I have around recovery. And this one is very important for you to know because whether I like it or not, it's going to impact the information that I present on this channel. So you need to know what biases are impacting me and how that might be impacting what it is that you're seeing here. All right, so the first one is called the sunken cost fallacy. So this is the tendency to continue to invest resources, time, money, energy into something just because you've already put so much into it. That is your only reason. So I used to live in Canada. I left many years ago now, I think 12 years ago. But when I first left, I thought I was leaving for 6 months. I was going to Southeast Asia. I was going backpacking. I was in the middle of this sort of early midlife crisis, kind of eat, pray, love cliche moment. And I left to go backpacking, put all my stuff in storage. I had just gotten divorced. We'd sold our house. So all I had, or everything I had, was in the storage unit in Canada. And I thought I was off for 6 months and went around Southeast Asia and Australia and India, and it was amazing. And I quickly became addicted to this travel and I didn't want to go home. So at all costs, I figured out ways to stay and except to visit my dad occasionally. 12 years later, I haven't been back since, not to live. I mean, I had this storage unit that was very expensive that I was paying for month after month after month, year after year after year. And when I met my now husband, Jeffrey, and he said to me, he's really good with finances and historically I've been terrible. So he was trying to help me to get better. And I'm looking at my costs and I have the storage unit. And he's like, well, you can just walk away from it. People do that. Stay with me. This is relevant to you. This is relevant to your health. I promise. You're always going to remember this story as you're going through your journey. And it's going to be like, don't be a Raelan. So he says, just walk away from it. The people who own the storage unit, they will sell it, sell your stuff, auction it off, whatever. You just write them and say you are stopping payment and giving up rights to all your stuff. And at first this was unthinkable because I was very attached to all my stuff. Like, it's my stuff. It's childhood stuff. It's things that I thought had so much value. And then also the bigger thing was that I had been paying thousands of dollars. I've been paying at this point for 6 years or something to store all this stuff. And if I gave it up now, if I walked away from it now, that meant that $6,000 was a complete waste. Complete waste. I should have just walked away from it my first week when I left the country. So I rationalized that like I had to keep paying. I had to keep the stuff so that all of those financial resources I put into it weren't for nothing. But with each passing month, that cost was going higher and higher. And nothing in there was of that much value. I could have replaced it all, probably a lot of it by that point with the money I'd spent storing it. So with every passing month, it was just becoming more and more of a failure, of this money pit that was sucking me dry. So eventually I came around to that I had to just walk away from it. I had to cut my losses. That the reason wasn't reason enough. The reason that, well, I've already invested so much into this, so I have to keep doing it, made no sense. But it's a really hard thing to wrap your head around sometimes. So with your health, and this happened to me with my health as well, be like, well, I already paid for this program, or I already committed to this group, or I already bought all these supplements. And even though I'm not seeing any progress at all, or maybe I'm even getting worse, I'm kind of committed and I've already spent so much on it. If I quit now, all of that's a waste. But really everything from that moment forward, if it doesn't make sense anymore, is a waste. And with each passing day, week, month, year, it's just adding to the waste. Now, a second cognitive bias that people sometimes face when they're working on their health recovery from things like chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID and so forth is something called a confirmation bias. I saw it in myself. And I see it in other people all of the time. It is a massive one. And it really frustrates me because it breaks my heart to see how much this is potentially holding some people back. So what the confirmation bias is a way that you approach life seeking out new information in a way that confirms legitimizes what you already know, the way you see the world. It confirms your existing beliefs, your existing hypotheses about things. And the problem it's that you do it by putting on blinders and not taking in anything else. Like, this is the way I see health. This is the way I see healing. This is the way I see my body works. So I'm only gonna look for and take in information that confirms this viewpoint. And anybody who's saying anything different, I'm not going to listen to, because I don't want to have to question my core beliefs and my core understanding of things. And I'm not willing to let go of them. It's a stubborn clinging onto something, even if it's not working for you, just like my storage unit. There's a stubbornness there and just an unwillingness to open your mind and think about things in a different way. So if you have it, the only way I'm going to heal is with them coming up with some new amazing prescription drug. So you're going to disregard everything else that you hear that is not some sort of lab guy coming up with a designer drug for you. Or maybe you're like, the brain and the nervous system has everything to do with healing. So that's only the information that I'm going to take in. Or maybe you think the brain and the nervous system has nothing to do with healing. So you're not going to listen to any of that and you're just going to focus in on whatever else it is. Or, a vegan diet is the best diet on the planet, or a carnivore diet, or a paleo, or a keto, or a whatever. And you just keep looking for information. Every time you hear a story, see an article that's like keto, and it's saying something good about it, you pull that in, you hold on to it tight, and then you just keep disregarding everything else, but just keep adding on things to confirm what you already believe. The great news is that with most of these biases, once you shine a light on them and you see what they are and what they are for what they are, like when I understood the sunk cost fallacy, when I understood the rationale that I was using to continue with my problematic behavior, then it became much easier to stop it. Just like the confirmation bias. Once you have that awareness that it's happening and you've brought it out into the light, it's much easier to start to change the way that you behave and you think, and to start to be more open-minded and to catch yourself in those moments where you're like, am I just shutting this out because it doesn't fit with my beliefs and I don't want them to be challenged and it's scary to have to try and think in a new way? Or am I shutting this out because it's really not for me? Okay, so we're getting to my big bias next. So hold on for that. But the third common cognitive bias that I want to share with you is one called the halo effect. And this is where we take characteristics of a certain person or group. There are things about them that we like or we don't like. And because of that, that sort of spreads to everything else in that whole space. Like, let's say there's a YouTuber that you really like. Could it be me? I try to be funny sometimes, and then it just comes across as weird and awkward and narcissistic, maybe? I don't know. I feel like that was a fail. But let's just say in this failed joke of whatever that was, there's a YouTuber that you really like. and I crack myself up a lot. It's a bit weird. And because of that, whatever you see on this channel you're like, yes, must be true. I'm going to do that because I generally like what she talks about. So this is going to be a thing for me as well. And you might not be really giving the objective analysis to the thing in that video or the person that I have on my channel that you could be because of this bias. And it can work the other way. Like maybe there's a person on YouTube, could also be me, that you really don't like. So anything that you see on this channel, whether it's things that I'm sharing or people that I have on, you automatically start to think of them as negative and to discard them because of that. This isn't my big bias that I'm about to share, but it is one of mine. Like I know I don't have a great opinion of Twitter or Reddit, especially when it comes to information about long COVID or any CFS recovery. So pretty much anything that I hear that has been shared in either of those spaces, I would disregard, which is probably to my own detriment because it seems safe to assume that even though there is a sea of crap happening in those spaces, have no doubt that there is, but amongst all of that crap, there probably is some good stuff. And by my having this attitude, having this bias, I'm going to be missing out on those good things. All right, which leads me to my biggest bias around recovery from these sorts of fatigue conditions. Somebody actually emailed me and pointed this out to me. Thank you to the person who did that. I was already somewhat aware of this, but this email really got me thinking about it more in depth and the impact that it has on viewers like yourself, and how I had the obligation to really think about this and to be transparent about it in my videos. So there are a couple of more technical psychology type names for this bias, but essentially my bias, what's happening on my channel is that it is a recovery bias, because the nature of what I do here is interview people who have recovered. So the bulk of the information that I am taking in is from people who have recovered. So we are noting themes, we are seeing trends with people, and I'm internalizing all this information as potentially generalizing to the larger population. However, if my channel was all about doing interviews with people who hadn't recovered, chances are I would be taking in and sharing some very different themes. So it's important to realize that I am seeing chronic illness recovery through a filter of people who recover. And there are absolutely valuable things to learn and things that we need to understand with all of the people that have yet to recover. And I thought about it, like, should I just start doing a lot more videos with people who haven't recovered? But I ultimately don't see the big picture benefit of that right now, because what we need more than anything is information about what is helping people. And we need for people to have hope, because they need that fuel to keep working on your recovery and keep at it and know that at least some people out there are recovering. So ultimately, I've determined that there's much more value for me right now and to continue doing what I'm doing, which is to share what works, but just to be more transparent about the observations that I'm making and that I'm sharing here, and what filter, what biases are impacting that. And it's not quite as black and white as I'm making out to seem here, because these recovery stories that I'm sharing, many of these people for years, quite a few of them even decades, were not recovering. So for years and years and years, they were in the not recovered story category. So recovery stories and people who haven't recovered aren't exactly, completely separate dichotomous groups. There is absolutely overlap. And we don't know what percentage. I'd like to think a really high percentage of the people who haven't recovered, it's just a part of their journey on that destination to recovery, which is what we're seeing in a lot of cases. So it's complex, but trying to be transparent, shine some light onto all of this, and to help me and you come at all of this information as objectively as we can, so that we can use the information in the most helpful way, so that you can use the information in the way that is most helpful for you and helping you on your health and recovery journey. So I invite you to, along with me, to continue to just be honest with ourselves about the biases that we have, to work to eliminate them so that we will both be better off as a result. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to link on the screen here one that is all about dealing with setbacks, because we know setbacks are inevitable, so we might as well have the tools that we need to get through them. Thanks for watching. Whatever you're currently going through, whatever you're facing, I'm sending massive hugs to you. I know you know this, but in case you need a reminder, you have totally got this. Keep at it. Please keep at it. You will get there. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in this next one.